So in this session of GroupBy, Andrea Allred, who for those of you who are just listening to the audio, you don't know that she's wearing a princess costume, that is your loss. You should go see the recording on YouTube or watch it live. Andrea Allred is going to be talking through T-SQL for Beginners, A New Hope. So take it away, Andrea.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here today. The reason I am doing this class is because I want people that are brand new to SQL to understand that it's super easy. It works just like English once you figure out the Rosetta Stone and how to translate it back and forth. Just so that we make sure we have all the right people here, this is for people who are new to T-SQL. We're going to be covering just a few basic things like select, from, where, group by, having, order by, and how to do a basic backup, how to actually script it out and do a simple backup. So it should be super fun and, in my mind, super easy. So this is me.
And I like it when you said a group by. That's fantastic. So let's continue.
Yeah, group by is the best, right?
Exactly.
This is me. I'm going to let you read my slide on your own, but I blog at royalsql.com. That's the reason for the dress. I also am on Twitter at royalsql.com or at royalsql, and feel free to reach out to me. I love to talk to people. If you see me in an event, I love to take pictures, so please, please, please come take pictures with me. It's super fun. And yeah, I'm married. A lot of people don't realize that I'm married. I have an awesome husband who dresses up as a prince, so I feel really lucky about that. So he indulges a lot of the princessness. So. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we want to talk about is what is T-SQL? SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It also, when you are referring to T-SQL, it's Transact Structured Query Language. That is the Microsoft standard, so it's Microsoft specific language. PL-SQL is Oracle's. So just a quick introduction on that. So I want to start at the very, very, very beginning. T-SQL is a lot like a spoken language, so once you flip that switch in your brain, it will be super simple. When I was first starting to learn T-SQL, I started to dream in it, and that's how I know that I'm learning a language is when I start to dream in it. And I went through and I cleaned my entire house using T-SQL. So, I was updating all the cans in my cupboard to make sure they were at the right date. I was going through and truncating my trash. I was selecting all from the clutter and I was moving it to different areas. The whole thing was in T-SQL, and I woke up the next morning completely exhausted and I still had a messy house. So I was kind of disappointed, but I knew that was how I was learning SQL. So the basic commands that we are going to be dealing with today are select, from, where, group by, having, and order by. So select is what I want. From is where I want to get it from. Where is only if it matches what I want. Group by is when I want it to summarize for me. Having is when it's used after a group by to do more filtering. And then order by is to sort it the way I want it. So how is it like English? The easiest way for me to start this is to give you a sentence. I buy milk from the store if it is chocolate. So my select statement, my select would be I buy milk. My from would be from the store. My where is if it is chocolate. So my select statement would look like what I have on the screen here. Select milk from store where flavor equals chocolate. It's super simple. So let's get into some more details on our select statement. With select, you want to use it wisely, especially if you're playing with select star. I also wrote a post on this on royalsql.com, so feel free to go check that out. Select star is a quick way to see all of your fields, but you want to be super careful with it. I like to do a select top 5 when I use star, just so that I'm not pulling back too much data and I'm not filling up my buffer cache or kicking things out. When writing code for reports, I prefer, when I'm writing code or when I'm writing stuff for reports, I like to list out my fields specifically. This way, if something new is added to the table, I'm not accidentally getting a field that I'm not expecting. So that also helps me to know what I'm going to be getting back every single time. And then the final thing with select is you want to know what you're selecting from, so you know how many rows to expect, so you're not getting too much data back. Okay, with from, you're going to be picking from a specific table. You will also want to include your schema. DBO is the default schema. So you can see like dbo.users is the table that we're going to be using in our examples. There are other names, or there's other schemas. There's like the person schema, the contact schema. Your company may have a specific schema that they're using. So you want to always specify the schema when you're using your table. Also, when you have a schema and a table, you can have, like I have a DBA schema. I can have a table that is like user in the DBA schema, and I can also have a user table in the DBO schema. That's why it's super important to always include your schema in your select statements or in your from clauses. You can connect to multiple tables using joins, and we're going to cover that just a little bit later. And then this is the basic SQL statement that I'm going to be starting with, the select top 5 from Stack Overflow.dbo.users. Stack Overflow is my database, so I'm fully qualifying here. I'm specifying my database, my schema, and my users. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this looks in SQL Server. I've run this first query. This is the select top 5. You can see I'm using that top 5 so that I can get the data back quickly. But if you look at this table, I have a whole lot of information here that I don't really need. So I'm going to go ahead and filter this down a little bit with my select clause, and I'm only going to get a few columns back. So you can see I changed to top 10 because I am bringing back more columns. So the columns I am listing out here now are display name, location, reputation, and upvotes. So I'm selecting with my specific columns from, here's my database name, my schema, and my table. Now, if I didn't want to specify my database name, I just need to be sure to select my database name from here, and it will automatically go to the Stack Overflow database, and I can remove my database name. Do we have any questions so far?
I think everybody's saying that they really like it, how you're presenting. Okay. This session may be a benchmark for a lot of people to learn about T-SQL the way you explain in the simplest possible word. I love the English part really, really very well.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So we're going to flip back over to our presentation here. And we're going to add in the where clause. So where is a way that we can go through and filter out the data that we don't need. It's going to help us to improve performance by not bringing back too much data. The where clause that I'm going to be adding is going to be where display name equals anon. It's similar to the name anonymous, but I found that there are a lot of people that like to use the name anon, so I'm going to be using that so that you can see how it filters out the data. Also, there's going to be this is the way that you can make it just a little bit more useful. So with a where clause, what you're going to be looking for is your column, your operator, and what it is being compared against. So with this, I'm going to use display name. That's my column. My operator in this case is going to be an equals because we're starting with something really simple. And then what I'm comparing against is that anon. So let's go ahead and flip over and take a quick look at how that's going to work. See, this is my where clause, and you can see I have the exact same select statement that we were using right before. And now you can see that I'm only bringing back people that have the display name anon. There are about 900 rows that come back with this if I don't have the top on there, so that's why I'm leaving the top on there for now. But I want to show you more operators because you're not always going to be looking for something that is equal to. So yes, we have the basic equals operator. So we have where display name equals anon, or we can have the does not equal. There's two operators that can be used for does not equal. It's the greater than, less than brackets. That's my preferred way to do it. There's also the exclamation point equals. Both of those will work in T-SQL. So the where clauses here would look like where display name does not equal anon, and also where display name does not equal anon. A few other basic operators that can be used is the greater than. it means that this column has more than what's in that column, what's in our what we're comparing against. So where upvotes is greater than a specific number. You can also use dates for the greater than and less than. Along with greater than, we have greater than and equal to. The difference between greater than and greater than and equal to is that you will get that specific number back and anything above it. If you don't include the equal to, it will skip that number and just go above it. It's the same thing with the less than and the less than and equal to. If you include the equal to, you will get that number in your results. If you don't include the equal to, it'll just be everything below that number. And finally, like. Like and not like are fun. Oh wait, we're going to go back before we do this because I want to show you just our basic operators before we get into this. Because I like a lot. So here you can see we're using the does not equal to. And you will see that there is nothing with a non-returned. We will get anonymous user because we're not using, it has to exactly match what is in between these quotes here. I'm also going to show you that I can use the does not, the greater than less than operator is the does not equal, and that works exactly the same.
I have a quick question. Why you say this is your preferred way, not equal to? Any reason for that?
It's the way that I learned, and so that's why I prefer it that way. It's also the standard here at where I work, and so that's why I stick to that one. A lot of people, I don't know if the does not equal was an older way of doing it or was from a different language or something like that, but when I use the greater than and less than together, it just means does not equal better for me than the bang exclamation or the bang equals. Do you have a preference on the two?
No, I used to write this way only, but as soon as I start blogging, in initial time of the blogging, this one was getting converted to some ampersand number. So I went with exclamation mark and equal to, but I personally love this one because of what you just said. It's like it's greater than and less than, like the way, so it's really not equal to. So this particular sign really conveys the message, where other one you have to learn it. So I really love your explanation.
Yeah. I feel more comfortable with it. That's
yes.
Visually, I can look at it and go, okay, that does not equal. But the exclamation point bang, same thing. I had to learn that before it made sense to my brain.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here is where we are doing the greater than, and I am including a specific number so that you can see that it is not, that specific number is not showing up in our upvotes list here. That's because I didn't include the equals to. It's just greater than. But now if I throw on the equals, oh, that's a plus. You will see with the same query now, we get our number right there. So that's why it's super important to understand the difference, because you may be missing results if you're not using the equals to. Now I'm going to flip over to the less than and show you the same type of thing. So our upvotes are less than 45. Oh, also, have you guys ever figured out how to tell the difference between greater than and less than? This was something I learned in elementary school. It looks like an alligator, and the alligator's super hungry, and so the alligator is going to eat whatever is bigger. And so with greater than, he's going this direction, and with less than, he's going that direction. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it always made me laugh. Okay, so if I run this one, which I think I have already run it, you will see that the 45 is not listed here at all. But if I add my equals to again, my 45 will show up. So yay. Super great way to keep track and make sure. So now we're going to move on to the super cool operators, which I really like. I like having the additional options. The problem with super cool operators is they do have more of a performance impact, so you'll want to keep that in mind whenever you're using them. Like is fascinating to me because it's everything that is similar to these first four letters and then whatever could possibly come after the percent sign. Now you can put this percent sign anywhere you want within this word. You can do it at the beginning, and I'm going to show you how this works. So if we put it at the beginning of anon, it will be everything that will end with that A-N-N-O-N or A-N-O-N. If we put that around the anon, it will get everything that has things that have the word anon in the middle. So it's really exciting. Not like works just the opposite of like. It's going to bring back everything that doesn't look like what you have in between those brackets, not brackets, I can't think of the word. Quotes, in between your single quotes. All right, also there's in. In is where you're going to create a list. So as you can see here, I have where display name in, and I've created a specific list. So my results are going to look like anything that is included in this list. With not in, it's just the opposite. It's going to give me display name where it doesn't look like anything in this list. And finally, between. Between is awesome. I use it mostly for dates, but it also works with numbers. So with between, you're going to use the words between a number or a date and the letter or the word and then another number or date. So your results are going to come back with anything that falls in between this range. And when you do not between, it's everything that it's not between that range. So now let me show you how it works. So with like, this is exactly what I was talking about with the demo. We're going to have that percent sign at the end, and I'm going to go ahead and execute it. You can see that all of our display names are similar or start with anon. We can get the exact word, or we can get a whole bunch of different names that look very similar to that start with those first four letters. I'm going to take out the A and I'm going to throw a percent sign at the beginning. So now it's going to bring back anything that has NON in it. So we will still get like anonymous user, but we're also going to get things like Brannon and Josh Gagnon. And if I have it only looking for things that end in that, we will see that our anon does show up again. But again, we also get names that just end in that. There can't be anything after that NON in order for it to show up. So it won't show up like anonymous user because that would be in the middle of the word. Oh, and let's do not like. So you can see the exact same things. So now you can see that we get everything, our results coming back don't end in NON at all. If we move this percent sign around, we will see that our results don't include anything that has NON in the middle. And if we remove it off the front, we will see that we no longer get that anon user. So now let's play with in a little bit. Here I have my list, and you can make this list as big as you want, really, but I don't recommend it. If you're going to use a big list, you want to join to a table, so I'll show you how to do. That will actually be in a different presentation, how to join to a list, but you can take my word for it right now. This is just a simple way that you can create a fast list. So you can see that in my results, I'm only getting back things that are listed in my list in that in clause. So I am getting a non, anonymous, and anonymous. I think that one's really funny. That one was one of my favorite ones. Now if I add the not into my where clause, you'll see that I don't get anything like a non, anonymous, or anonymous. I do still get anonymous user though. That's because that was not specified in my list. Now let's play with between. Again, you can see that I have my where clause. Here is my column name. My operator is the between. Here is the start of my range. My and is in the middle, and here's the end of my range. So we are looking for anything that's between 5,000 and 5,045. Something to remember with between. It works very much like the greater than and less than. It does not have the equal to, so if you have like 5045 for the top of your range, it will not show that number. And also with the 5,000 at the bottom of my range, it will not show that number. It's just things that are between those two numbers. So if you want those numbers included, you need to adjust your range accordingly. So you can see in our results that we got everything that's greater than 5,000 but less than 5045. Now if I use not between, it's going to be everything outside of that range. So you'll get numbers that are lower and that are higher than 5,000 and 5,045. Do we have any questions so far on the operators? I'm hoping not. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you have any questions so far, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, great. So let's add in GroupBy because it's awesome. GroupBy gathers similar data together. It's used to create aggregates, and it's awesome for totals, averages, counts, min, max. The group by columns, you're going to be grouping by the columns that you don't want to sum or average or count. You can have multiple columns in your group by, and I'm giving an example right here of what a group by will look like. So we're going to be grouping by display name and location. So here you can see we have our group by display name and location. Those are the only two normal columns that we have up here. And you can see that I'm going to be counting multiple columns here so that you can see the difference between a sum and a count. Count is actually a function that is in SQL Server, and I'm going to show you a couple other functions that work similar to it, that also work in SQL Server. So our results are going to be showing us all of the anons that I have listed and their location, but it's actually grouping them also. So you can see that these two columns here, the upvotes and the ID, are now being counted. So we can see that we have 356 users that are called anon that have not specified a location. Now, you may be wondering why we have India listed twice here. That's because this specific database is case sensitive, and so it is looking at the capitals and the lowercase, and because those are spelled out differently, or not spelled differently, but they have a different uppercase and lowercase, it is separating them out. So you can see that we have 356 users. So if I change the count of upvotes to a sum, you're going to see how many votes are actually there. So for the upvotes, we have 809 now for anon. We're looking at our top row here. And again, we're still grouping by display name and location. Let's say I just wanted to group by the display name. I can remove location, but I also have to remove it from my query at the top too. Otherwise, we will get an error. And now I'm only getting one row back. It removed the location from the group by, and you can see that our sum and our count did increase because it summed everybody together. I'm going to go ahead and add location back in. and I'm going to change this sum to an average. The only row that this average really changed for was the first one, and the reason being is that there are 356 users in there. Some of those users have 0 votes, some of them have a lot of votes, and we're going to show that in just a second. But you'll notice that down here, they didn't change at all with their average because there's only one user there and there's nothing for it to be averaged by. This number, the 9, is being divided by a 1. Whereas the count that was, or the sum that was up here before, the 809, is being divided by 356, and that's how it's getting the average. I love that SQL does all this cool stuff without me having to think about it. So now we're going to look at the min, and we're going to see what the lowest amount of upvotes is there. And see, there are anon users that have 0 upvotes. That's why that average is so different. Now we're going to get the max. I want to see what the max number of upvotes is for that anon user. And here we can see that one of them has 148. That's why it's keeping the average higher, is because some of them have something like 148 and some of them have 0 upvotes. Now we're going to move on to having. I love having. I learned having right after I learned GroupBy. And it helped me solve a massive problem that I was trying to figure out. The nice thing about having is that it works with GroupBy, but allows you to filter using the things that you have just grouped by. Like a where clause can't filter based on a count or a sum, but having can. So it gives you that opportunity to filter more. You can have multiple clauses in your or multiple columns in your having clause, and I'm giving a quick example of having right here on the slide. So having count ID greater than 50. So we're using operators that we're all familiar with. We're using a function, which is the count that we're familiar with, and we're using this, our ID column that I'm going to show you. So here is what my having clause looks like. We are going to be summing our upvotes, and we're looking for things that are greater than 5. Or upvotes that are greater than 5. So you can see we only get back 3 columns. We removed everybody that had 0 upvotes, and now we're only seeing these 3 that had more than 5. If I wanted to change this number, say to 11, it would remove those other 2 columns, or 2 rows. Now let's say that I wanted to add additional filters into my having clause. I could absolutely do that. I would add an and I want you to notice that right here IntelliSense is trying to help me. So you can see that it's saying, oh, hey, are you trying to use the ID column? Well, here it is. And I can hit tab and it will automatically pre-fill in that column for me. I know it was just 2 letters, but with larger columns, it becomes super helpful. So now you can see that it only brings back 1 row, and if I remove that, so that you can see the difference, you'll see it bring back 3. Super fun, super easy. That's what I love about T-SQL.
This reminds me one thing, like couple of times before when I was doing the having, one person just told me that having, you don't ever have to use where clause because you can just use having. And I had a lot of difficulty explaining him that they are 2 entirely different things. Having can do your stuff once in a while, but you are using something else for something else. But the way you explain, I think it's totally makes sense. There is one more question also on a chat going on. So I just want to say how the between works. So I would answer on your behalf that between is inclusive, and it definitely includes both the values which are there, and it also supports integer as well as date and some of the other values. So now let's continue. I just thought I would just give a small interruption and I just clear out all the questions which we have. So fantastic. Let's continue, Princess.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. With having, you don't want it to be your only filtering out clause. And I'm going to show you that with the order of operations, because the way that the order of operations works, having comes a lot later than a where clause. So you're going to be bringing back more data to process when you're filtering with a having clause. All right, so let's move to order by. This is how we can sort our data, and a lot of people like data to be sorted so it makes sense to them so that they can see it. When you're sorting your data with an order by, it automatically assumes that you want to sort the column ascending, which means like the lowest number to the highest number, or A to Z, or the oldest date to the newest date. You can change that by specifying DESC or descending at the end of that specific column that you're sorting on. You can have multiple columns in your order by, and the ascending and descending can be done by column. It's not just for the whole thing. Let's play with order by. Because order by comes at the very end of the order of operations, I can actually order by account, which is right here, something that I created. It's a summed column. It is something that wouldn't be able to be filtered out in my where clause. So I'm going to show you that first, that I can do that. And so you can see that it's going lowest to highest. Now if I add the descending, it's going to go highest to lowest. But say I want to sort on different columns. I don't want to just sort on the count. I would rather use the display name. You can see I'm using my intellisense here. And let's also do my location. Now again, it's assuming that I want it ascending for both of those. It will do display name first and then location second, because that's the order that I have them listed in. So here I'm getting, and you can't see it because it's all a non, so we're going to change this to a like. So now you can see that I have a non, and then I have others, but they're all in alphabetical order. Now, why did this one pop up down here? Well, it's because it has a period next to it, and that comes later than a space. So that's what's moving it down. We're going to change this to top 10 so I can speed it up a little bit. Okay, and now let's say I wanted to flip my display name and my location. I want to sort by location first and then display name. Null comes first alphabetically. Let's add on to my where clause where location is not null. See, so now you can see why did it come up with blank? Well, the reason that came up with blank is that this is actually a space, not a null. They're different in SQL. So you want to remember that space and null are very different in SQL. It's going to put the space first, and then I'm going to be getting it alphabetical by location, and then it will go back and sort the display name second. What if I flipped these and I added like descending to my location, but not my display name? Well, it's going to flip my location, but my display name will still be going ascending. And if I add descending onto my display name, you're going to see those flip as well.
Choo choo, here comes the SQL train.
Yay!
That's the advantage for staying near the railway station. But I think your queries are running faster than the train, which is passing by my home. And I tried to click on a mute couple of times. I miserably failed. And I think that's why I love GroupBy. It shows the real side of us.
I think it's fantastic, and I really, really liked it. So no worries there. Okay, does anyone have any questions up to this point?
All questions are answered, but
Sure.
you have been presenting such a way that questions are being answered as soon as they are being asked. So that's good. But one comment somebody made it in between that about does not equal to, they said the one which we discussed about less than and greater than is common across all SQL language, whereas does not equal to is only supported in portion of the SQL, Doug Stevens said. So I think that's the reason. I think it seems he also prefers the same one which we like it. So that's awesome. I didn't know this trivia, and it's very fantastic. See, that's good.
Yeah, this is awesome. I always love this because I learn from these, and it's like, yes, that's fantastic. Okay, so I have better answers for next time.
There was one other question that I'm going to wait till the end to bring up to everyone, because I think it's probably open for discussion. But keep going. It's a really good question. You can keep your questions coming in, by the way.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about the order of operations. This is why it's so important to have your from and your where clause set up properly, because those two are evaluated first. That means that when the SQL engine goes through, it's going to look at your from clause and your where clause. So anything that you can limit down between those two is going to mean that less data is being read and less data is being brought back. Then it's going to evaluate your group by. Then it's going to evaluate your having, and that's where it's going to filter out a little bit more. Then it will do your select. So this is why you want to keep your select short with just the specific columns that you need, because it's happening so much further down. You want to make sure that it's short. And then finally, it will do your order by. That is why I can put count and things that I've aliased in my select statement down in my order by. Now we're going to do joins. I like joins. They are the magic of T-SQL, honestly. So there's 4 kinds of joins that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about an inner join, and that's only if it matches in both tables. That's what it's going to be returning. A left join is going to bring back everything from the left table and only what matches in the right. With the right join, it's going to be just the opposite, everything from the right table and only what matches in the left. And a full join is everything from both tables. Now, when you do a left join and it's bringing back everything from the left table and only what matches in the right, that means you're going to be getting some nulls on the right side. With the right join, it's just the opposite. You're going to be getting some nulls on the left side. And then with the full join, you're going to be getting nulls on both sides. I'm going to show you all this. So this is what an inner join looks like if you have a specific visual for it. So remember, it's only bringing back results that match in both tables. And you're not going to see what's eliminated. Those nulls won't show up, and you're not going to know what rows you're not getting back. So that's why I usually, when I'm playing with a select statement, I'll play with an inner join and I'll play with a left join so that I can see the things that are not coming back and that I'm missing. This is an example of how we would write an inner join. So we have our from stackoverflow.dbo.users, and I'm putting the letter U at the end of this. This means that I'm aliasing this table, and I'm going to be showing you why that's important in just a second. Then I have my inner join stackoverflow.dbo.badges table, and again, I'm putting a B at the end of this. This is my alias, so that when I go to do my on clause, which I'm doing next, this is how I tell it what 2 columns are the same so it can connect the 2. U stands for my users table and B stands for my badges table. So I can say u.id equals b.userid instead of having to do the whole dbo.users or or dbo.badges. It saves me a lot of time and a lot of typing, and it also makes my code look cleaner. So let's look at what a left join would look like. It's going to be bringing all the rows in from the tables on the left and only what matches on the right. Left outer join and left join are the same thing. So if you're lazy like me, I usually just type left join. I used to type left outer join when I was first starting, but it will assume the same thing. The same thing happens with the inner join, and I skipped that, but it was on the slide. With the left outer join, you are going to see nulls. So let's hop and take a quick look at what our left join would look like. So we have our from stack overflow.dbo.users, and it looks exactly the same as our inner join, except instead of the word inner, we have left join. Okay. Any questions so far? I'm going to keep going to the right join. So with the right join, it's the same as the left join, and usually the only time that I use right join is if I don't want to rechange the order of the tables that I've been typing them in, and I suddenly realize, oh, that should have been, those should have been reversed. I should have had this table above this table. And so right join, the only time I use it is when I'm being lazy. So if you see a right join in my code, that's why. Usually I will use left joins. But that's just a personal standard. Do you guys have an opinion on that? With the right and left?
Actually, I use a left join only because I think that's how I just read it. I just read from left to right when I'm writing SQL or any language or any words. So I use left join all the time, but I think I differ with myself because I see the execution plan, I think from right to left. So I think I'm just saying two different things right now, but about join, I use left join. Let's see what Brent and Drew says.
Oh, I was just going to say it's like explosive over in Slack. People are like, I always type it this way. I never type it that way.
Yeah, it's battle lines have been drawn.
Drew is unfortunately on the wrong side of the battle, but we will continue that battle. No,
I feel like wrong is not the right word.
Losing is the better word. Yes. All right.
For me, a right join is when I'm being lazy, honestly. I usually will use a left join, but I think it comes down to like your personal preference. T-SQL is very much an art. It is not a science. And so it comes down to your personal preference. Everybody draws a certain way. Everybody writes T-SQL their certain way. And as long as you know T-SQL and you understand it, you can read anybody's code. And I think that's what's most important. Having clean code that works properly is the most important part. This is what our right join is going to be looking like. And again, it looks exactly the same as the left join. I've just changed the word from from left to right, but it's going to be bringing back vastly different results because it's bringing back everything from the right table and only what matches on the left. Finally, full joins. Everything. It brings back everything in both tables. You're going to have lots of nulls everywhere. Full outer join and full join are exactly the same thing. You're going to see nulls on both sides, like I said, and I'm going to show you what the full join looks like in T-SQL right here. So we have, again, it looks exactly like everything we've been typing, but instead of left or right or enter, we've typed the word full. So it is important to pay attention to every single word in your T-SQL query because one change of one little word can bring back a whole bunch of different results. So let's play with joins. Yay! So right now we're going to play with the inner join first. So you'll see I have inner right here. And I'm only going to bring back the top 5 right now. And I'm listing out the specific columns that I want. So if we look at this, it's kind of hard because you don't see any difference. Well, that's because there's no nulls coming back. So our line right here is between the upvotes and the name. So these first 5 columns, is that right? That's 5. Yep. These first 5 columns are what's on the left side, and this last column is what's on the right. I'm going to show you what it looks like if I bring back all of those columns. No, I'm not. I take it back, I'm not. I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, I will. So I'm going to do a select top 5 star with my inner join. And so you can see this massive amount of data, and you'll see that all of it is there. Right here is our divider line between the two tables, and all of our data is there. Let's go over to the left join and take a look. Now I've picked out a specific user so that you can see how the left join works. This is our divider line again, right here, right after between account ID and ID. That everything is filled up. There's a few nulls in there, but there is rows being returned for that data, but then everything on the right side is null. So I'm going to go to a specific group of rows here, or a specific group of columns, so that you can see those specific 5, because it makes it just a little cleaner. This is our dividing line. Everything in the left table, and then the right side has nulls. With the right join, I'm bringing back a user that specifically doesn't have anything in the users table and only has information in the badges. This actually would be dirty data, but I, was glad it was there. Because in my opinion, if they're in the users table, they should also be in the badges table. But it does show the point really well. Okay, and now let's do the full joins. You can see that everything comes back. Now I'm using both of those user IDs that I was using before so that you can see what happens with both sides. This one does take a little bit longer because I'm pulling back specific rows.
This teaches us that we should not use this so frequently unless and until we need it.
Right, absolutely, because it brings back so much. And you can see here that you've got the left table that has the nulls here where it just has the right information, and then you can also see the left table that's populated where the right is null. So you can see that it's bringing back everything, and yeah, it's a really difficult join. I want to show you one other thing, and we're going to have to talk to fill the time, because if I do a select star from this table, now remember it took 14 seconds to bring back those specific rows. Doing a select star makes it take a lot longer. So do we have questions while we're waiting for this to come back?
There is not a question, but this full join reminded me of a very first lesson which my very first boss taught me. One time there was really need for me to use this full join, and I used the full join, okay? And I went to him and he said, oh, full joins are bad. And before he finishes the statement, I said, you know what? That's the business need. That's the logic which you gave me. He said, hold on, listen, instead of using full join, just use left join and right join and union them. And I had a moment of like, wow, I never thought about it. And that was much more faster at that time when I practiced it, and it really made sense. Now, after looking at your full join, maybe I will try the same thing one more time and see it as a homework if that is still true with all the change in the logic in a SQL. This is like a homework for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, because it begins to make you wonder, like, is this a really good way to do it? And you do want to find the best way that works for your system. So playing with it is the best way to figure out what is going to be best for your performance.
Exactly. And somebody, oh, I just got school. Somebody wrote to me in an email saying, well, in my, that may produce the same execution plan. And now I ask him back saying, which version of SQL Server? And he's quiet. All this happened in last 15 seconds.
Now you can see we're at like a minute 40 and it is still going. Oh, there we go. A minute and 41. So the difference between doing the select star and listing out those 6 columns is huge. So this is why you want to be super careful with select star, first of all, and then also with full join. So that's a kind of a warning when you're playing with it. But remember to play with it, test it out. That's the best way to learn your system and to learn what's going to be best for you and your system. All right, let's get back to this. Now we're going to script out a basic backup. I think everyone needs to know how to do a basic backup. Whether you're a developer or a DBA, it is super important to know how to do a backup. You always want to be able to roll back and fix anything that you may have broken. So I'm going to bring back my Object Explorer. And I'm going to hover over the Stack Overflow database. I'm going to right-click, and there is this awesome thing called Script Database. Nope, not Script Database As. I could do that, but I'm not going to. We're going to go to Tasks and go to Backup. And this is how you could do a basic backup. You could just run this and it would work for you. But instead, we're going to script it to a new query window. SQL Server has a lot of this built in so that you can go ahead and just script anything anytime that you need it. So now that I've got this query here, what does this all mean? It's kind of like a lot of jumbled stuff. Well, let's talk through it so that you understand exactly what you're doing here and why. Whoops, no, I want you to be able to see this. Okay. So we've got our backup database, and that's our database name. So we're backing up the Stack Overflow database. To disk is the location where we're going to be putting it. So that makes complete sense. With no format, what is that? That's something that's from old, back when T-SQL was brand new, and you would go and reformat drives whenever you were doing backups, or reformat the space when you were doing a backup. So the default now is no format. This no int, what's that? So no int means that you're going to be appending to the data set, or to the backup set. I usually use just int because I want to overwrite it if it's there, but that's my own personal preference. So I would just remove that no, and I would just do int like that. You've got the name. This is a name that you can put in, and I have had people ask the questions, what does this N mean? That just means that text is about to follow. It doesn't always have to be there, but that's what it means. Now the skip is it going to skip checking whether or not that database has expired before I overwrite it. You can set an expiration date on backups, and if you say no skip, it will check that expiration date, make sure that has happened before it overwrites that backup. The no rewind is also from way back in the day when you were backing up to tape. It used to be that the default was rewind, and it would as soon as it finished the backup, it would start rewinding the tape. So no rewind means it won't rewind the tape. And then the no unload or unload means that after it finishes rewinding the tape, it will unload it so that it frees up that slot for another tape to go in. The one that was most interesting to me was the stats 10. I'd never paid attention to it before, and it turns out that this is how you can tell the progress of your backup. Your backup, you'll see, it'll say like 10% complete, 20% complete. This stats 10 means that it's going to be going by 10. You could do 5. You could do just about any number that you want. So if you did stats equals 5, it would be 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. And it just helps you to know how far along your backup is before you complete it.
That's good. Actually, that's a very, very interesting part. I didn't know this for at least last year. Somebody asked me, and then I learned about stats. And you are very, very right. These things which we see for the tape, nowadays we don't use it. So kind of, if we are not using tape, I believe we can escape them, right? We don't write it. And just like N stands for Unicode in a name, which we can also escape it if we don't want to, if you're not using Unicode name. So I think, yeah, you're right. In one way, we can skip few things here and there if we are not using it. But if we have Unicode text, we have to use N, and format and skipping things definitely makes sense. Yeah, thanks. This is good. This is really good.
Now, if you wanted to script it out the specific way that you want this backup to happen, you could go ahead and script it out differently. Go through, set your options in the interface, like this is the append versus the overwrite. I'd want it to overwrite every time, different things like that. You can get this exactly the way you want it, you know, checking your expiration date, different things like that, and then script it out, and it will give you with those specific settings that you set here. So that's a kind of a way to cheat a little bit when you're first learning T-SQL and when you're first learning how to do this. You can do the same thing when you're selecting from a table. You can do select top 1,000 rows or something like that, and it will return the query along with your result set so that you can see what you're going to be getting back and what the query looks like, and then you can adjust your query from there. So that's also a great way for when you're learning to set up a SQL query and to see how SQL would write it so that you can write it the same way.
And I think the backup here, I'm glad you're teaching about the backup part, because I think a lot of developers just ignore the backup. They just do things because they're worried. They don't know how to take backup, and they fire one update without where close, and I think their world resets. So I think it's really cool we are talking about it.
Yeah. To me, backups are the first thing that you should learn as a DBA is how to do a backup, and then for me, security is the second, because you want to keep your database healthy and be able to restore it, and you want to keep the bad people out. And so those are the two things that I always do very first when I want people to learn SQL, or when I want someone to learn about being a DBA. But T-SQL is an important part of that, because if you don't know how to navigate through your database, and if you don't know how to set up these specific scripts, you kind of get lost, and this is kind of like a little secret weapon that you can keep in your backpack and be like, oh, I know how to do that. Oh, I know how to find that information. So, do we have any other questions? Nope. Awesome. And this is just another, I am going to be putting my slides up on SlideShare so that you can go back and re-review these slides if you would like. And it does have that information in the notes section of the slide of what everything means. So finally, if you need more resources, the place where I learned to write T-SQL was SQLcourse.com. Now, you'll want to be a little careful with that because the joins get a little different than the way that T-SQL uses their joins. So be careful with that piece, but other than that, I think it's a great resource. I also used the Coding Horrors site to get the diagrams of the joins. So that's a great place to go and learn about the visual explanations of joins. Also, to learn about the backups, you can go to this Microsoft document that talks about T-SQL backups. And then if you have just random questions or want bite-sized bits of information, you can check out my blog at www.royalsql.com. And finally, if you have questions, you can contact me. I'm including my email address here. I'm happy to answer questions. I love, love, love T-SQL. I love SQL Server in general. I'm absolutely passionate about it. So if there's anything that I can do to help out, I'm happy to help out.
Nice job. Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for teaching. This sparked a lot of questions in Slack. It's one of these topics where you're never really officially done. You know, there's always things that you want to keep going and learning. So after you got done with the beginner resources, what were some of the things that you read these days in order to figure out, all right, what should I learn next in T-SQL?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. You know, the next thing that I learned about was correlated and non-correlated subqueries, right? Because I was playing with all these joins and I started writing subqueries like crazy because I was like, oh my gosh, that doesn't have what I need, but I could do it this way. And so I learned the difference between those two. And I actually thought about covering it in this, and then I was like, that's too much. I want to keep this basic. Yeah. I liked Panal talking about the union and union all. That was one of the things I used when I was very, very new. I don't do as much T-SQL now as I used to, but I do love to go back and play with it. Windowing functions. I love windowing functions.
Those are hard too. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember exactly how the syntax works when you get started.
I have to look up the syntax every time. So that's one of the reasons that I blog, is because I can write it the way that I understand it, so that when I want to go do it again, I can go grab it off my blog and set it up again. So I was kind of selfish when I initially wrote it, and I still am, because most of it's for me. And if other people want to read it, great, but it's mostly for me, so that I can remember the things that I've learned. But yeah, there's so much out there. I loved Doug Lane's class, the T-SQL Level Up.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic, and I geeked out the entire time. So yeah, he did a fantastic job.
He did. He's in Slack right now because Penal linked to it. It's a whole lot of fun. It's totally free. If you go to brentozar.com and click training up at the top, the T-SQL Level Up class, you don't have to register or anything for it. You can just start watching that thing. Yeah, that's huge.
You know,
there was one question Drew had it. I would like to hear that.
Yeah. So just to this is going to be kind of an open-ended question. You know, somebody asked during the presentation, you know, what do you think the average time to reach a decent level of competence with T-SQL is? And that's a real good question, because I mean, I've been a DBA for a long time, and I don't feel like I've mastered T-SQL. I mean, I have Google open all the time. Is that a measure of mastery, or is it just knowing when to do what? Like, so I thought that was a really interesting question. I would love to get people's thoughts.
Wow. Okay. I'm in the same boat as Drew. I have tons to learn still in T-SQL. And so if I were to rate my skills, I'd probably put them at like a 5 or a 6, because I know that there's still tons to learn. I've met a person and he said, I'm a 9. And I was like, no, there is no way you're a 9. I started coding with him and he's a 9. Like, it was insane. I was like, oh my gosh. And so he'd only been doing it for about 2 years, and I was just blown away with what he knew. So I think it depends on the individual with how much they're willing to put into it, how much they're willing to learn, and the need that they have, because you're not going to learn a lot of really deep T-SQL unless you have that need to learn it. But what does everyone else think?
Penal, you go next. You know, we'll go through the screen order.
Oh, nice. Hey, I always believe that if you just, it's a mixed bag. So anything and anything, I believe we can learn it in a 7 days, but that's just so basic. At least you can get by understanding things by 7 days. Like, at least you can learn about, or maybe you can watch Doug's course and you can learn everything in 2 hours. But having a working knowledge on a production system, you can do something. I believe 30 days is good enough time for anybody to master the introductory level of any language. And if you cannot learn anything in a 30 days as an introductory level, I think you need to work hard. You need to spend more time. But I believe 30 days introductory level is good enough. 6 months for just knowing all the working knowledge. And if you want to be smart like Brand, maybe 10 years.
42 hours. Drew, how about you? What do you think was the answer to that?
As far as, you know, getting a basic kind of just prep understanding, you know, I've seen people who have come in, you know, at entry-level developer positions that I've seen people pick it up in like a week. I've seen people pick it up in 2 months. You know, I guess it all depends on what you're trying to do. Like, if your bread and butter is writing selects every day, you know, that's the kind of, you know, depending on how complex you want to be, it could take you months, I think, before you get fully comfortable without, you know, being able to fire things off from the top of your head. You know, but a lot of people who are working with SQL in a developer role are more concerned with, you know, insert, update, delete syntax than maybe select, I guess, because a lot of people use ORMs for things. I think that's cool. I really don't have an answer. You know, I think it all depends on what your job role is and what you're expected to know.
I think if you like, the 1 to 10 scale is interesting to me because I look at a 10 is like Erland Sommerskog. So Erland Sommerskog is this blogger who writes epic, unbelievable posts on stuff like error handling. And I'm like, I don't even do try catch in my code. You know, I don't have any kind of level like that. So when I go on a 10, I still think of myself as like a 5. Because the more you learn, the worse you feel. You know, the more you go, oh my God, there's all these amazing, like you look at Itzik Ben-Gan doing these amazing tricks with T-SQL. So I almost think of it, Doug mentions in Slack, there's a difference between getting the right results and then getting them fast.
Yeah,
I think yeah, go ahead.
I think that's an important point too. Like, I think anybody can write a select statement, but if your goal is to write an efficient select statement, like that shows a higher level of understanding. It doesn't mean that you don't know it because you wrote an answer that maybe wasn't as fast as somebody else's, but at the same time, like, I think that shows a higher level understanding is once you start talking about sortability and indexes and stuff like that.
And you shouldn't feel guilty when you're starting like that, whether your queries run fast or not. Write to understand the query just so that you can read it as a human being and get the results that you want. 99% of the time when you write the query, you don't ever have to make it go fast. You just need to ship it. And then even when you do need to make it go fast, half the time somebody's going to change the query within a day or two or a week, so it'll keep evolving over time. Richie, how about you? What do you think? It's interesting, but it'd be much more interesting if we could hear you.
I have not been paying. It's a good thing too, because the Turkey Point nuclear plant sirens just went off, and I don't know if you noticed, but I started freaking out over here. But it turns out it's just a test, so it's okay. We're good. No
Turkey Point. Has there ever been a turkey in Miami?
I'm pretty sure somebody would have killed it and eaten it, or some sort of Santeria's sacrifice. It's more likely the case.
Yeah.
If we're on the subject of rating each other as like, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you? I mean, I'm probably like, I might be like a Columbus 6, but I'm probably a New York 3 when it comes to T-SQL.
I like that. That's pretty good. Yeah. I'm probably a Chicago 5, but a Silicon Valley 2.
That would be like a Miami 10.
Yeah. Fort Lauderdale 11.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I think you're absolutely right, because it depends on what you have to do, and the more you do it, the more you're going to learn, and the more you're going to be like, oh, I don't know all this. And so I think a lot of people will give a rating and then they're like, oh shoot, but I don't know all that. And so yeah, your ratings move around. But I liked your point about just write the SQL, because you're not going to get any better, and you're not going to learn how to do it any better unless you start doing it. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. I look back at some of my code from 10 years ago and I go, oh my gosh, I had no clue what I was doing. But at the same time, the engines have also changed. And so like things that were okay back then or were horrible back then are acceptable now or horrible now. So it just depends.
Code from 10 years ago. Try code for last week. Jeez.
Yeah. And you shouldn't, if you work so hard that you're proud of what you wrote as, oh my God, this is amazing flower, you probably took too long. Just ship as quickly as you can, get out there. I would also want to throw a plug out to one of the biggest resources that I had as I was learning T-SQL. Whenever I needed to accomplish something, I would find Pinal's blog. Like 9 times out of 10, as I was Googling, I'd be like, okay, how does the syntax for this work? And you see, and whenever I would see SQL Authority in my results, I'm like, aha, this I can copy paste and get to work, that I can make it work.
Let's not kid ourselves, people. We're sitting on a web conference with a 9 or a 10. I mean,
no.
Right?
So I have one thing to say here. I think it's very true. So why do people come to my blog? Like you just said, I think Brent, you said is very true. If we go to Erlan's blog, we feel like I'm a 5. People come to my blog so they can feel 100. They are 100. So that's the point, because it's maybe written very low. I mean, so they always feel much more confident when they see my blog. Oh, I can do better than this guy.
No, they always end up at your blog because they don't know what they're doing. Like every time I had to do something, I'm like, I have no idea how this works. Just like the merge statement, anything like that where there's syntax. For me, windowing functions are my kryptonite, so when I see something like that off of SQL Authority, I can just go copy, paste, and know that it's going to work.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That is what I love about Pinal's blog. It always works, and it's always there. And there's a lot of times I Google for stuff, and even now, and his stuff comes up, and I'm like, oh, of course, yes, he will know exactly how to do it.
Straight to the point. Straight to the point. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to ask you as another blogger, so you get a ton of comments. I mean, you get a lot of comments. Do you still read the comments as they come in or no?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. I stop answering nowadays because every comment so I do answer every comment which received, but I only go through the blog comments once a day now. Only reason is that when I used to answer it immediately, the second question comes back and the third question comes back, and somehow I figured it out. It's if it is a philosophical argument, it never ends, and if it is a technical argument, my one answer should be good enough when I answer them. So, and if you have anytime urgent problem, you should reach out to me via email and don't expect me to answer by comment. So I stop answering comments immediately. Only reason is that I don't want to compete with the Stack Overflow. That's the place where you can have a brain all together. Otherwise, every day morning after I post a blog, now I answer all my comments once a day.
It's true. People want, because they know the blogger, you know, that they've seen you, they've seen your picture. They want you to fix the problem. They want to sit there with you and have a dialogue.
Yes, and I'm happy to do that, but sometimes blog comments are not the right place to do it. Things which can easily be solved in 2 minutes on a phone call, chat, or even in an email, which blog comments doesn't serve the purpose. And open-ended questions which are left out for judgment, like, do you think you can do better? Like, what I'm going to answer to your comment? Like, yeah, I can do better, but like, what are you actually asking? Or can you solve the problem which is on my screen? And I feel like sometimes I even don't feel like asking them, like, I can't see your screen, or you forgot the screenshot, or where is your code? I mean, there are so many things. The comment thing in a blog doesn't work. That's my feeling. That's why I now went to once a day thing. Like people say, my queries are running slow. It's running for 10 minutes. It was running for 1 minute before. Give me any advice. Like, what I'm going to advise. Like, I asked that question yesterday in my newsletter. 5 people said when their queries are, this is truth. This is truth. Any of you are listening who have said this answer, I have already wrote negative to you. When I said your query was running fast, now it suddenly got slow, what would you do? And 4 people in a 1 minute answer of my email went out, said, I will restart the server. And I was like, why?
Yeah,
Truth.
yeah,
It's just like, why would you restart a server? And that's it. I mean, I think I didn't ask them that. I just said, maybe not a good idea. Then I said something, but yeah.
And but the thing is, it works for a lot of people. They go, it's not the best solution, but if I can get away with it, you know, you just do this and it works.
So I think I found why he switched to decaf.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
you get those emails in, and
It fires up. Like, I'm just reading and saying, oh, email came in and it says restart the server, and I should do that. And I think email are like people, Brent, I know when you are bored, sometimes you go and read some funny stuff in Wikipedia.
Yep.
I think I know that, and I see one time your screenshot, it was so much fun. And I think what I do, I read my old blog or my comments or my emails when I'm bored. I think I'm laughing at myself, some of my comments. Like, one time I wrote it, I still remember that you change your SA password and restart a server. And I know, I think it was wrong advice of my own, but everybody so harshly treated it. I still remember that. So when I read this and I think like, oh, I've got school many times and it was fun. Yes.
And you're always going to be doing things that are harder to you. You know, this is the career challenge thing. You're always going to be back at your career and go, oh my gosh, that thing I did 2-3 years ago, I was an idiot. If you don't think that means you're not growing. You're not doing new, better things.
Very, very true. And I recently have been reading about, let's talk about T-SQL in a minute. I was reading about your stuff yesterday. I think Eric wrote it about how you have a sub-queries and you have incorrect alias and can create the execution plan. And I was looking at it and I was like, how many times I would have seen people doing that? Such a simple thing. Wrong alias can entirely blow up your query to do incorrect results. So I think that blog was so well written, so simple, but amazing. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people would have learned from that one.
Oh, what's really funny is we write our blog posts and they're queued out like weeks in advance. We have like a month or more of blog posts. So I'd read Eric's blog post before. I'd seen what that was. Probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks after he wrote it, I made that mistake. In SP Blitz backups, I had a wrong join in there. And I'm like, man, this query sucks. What's performance, And it was all because I typed the wrong alias in when I was copy pasting. I read the stuff and I do it. Yeah,
and it's a crazy stuff. So I think T-SQL, I think, is still everybody's strong point but weak point. And I think Andrea did an amazing presentation. I learned a couple of things. Like state thing was so awesome. People don't know. I asked this thing and like, look, people like, we don't know. Is it only doing like one of the funniest answer when I got for stat 10 was, is it only doing 10% of my backup? I'm like, yeah, I mean, which one? Now guess which 10% of it will do backup for you. And the first 10%, I said, probably that's a 10% of your brain speaking. So actually, that's a different thing. But yeah.
Oh, people ask the coolest questions. People ask the coolest questions.
I was looking through the other questions, and I think everything else has been answered, Brent. But I think it would be good for people who don't have Slack to put up the link to your Stack Overflow download.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to switch over and share Slack here in a second. Let me figure out where is everything and go to webinar.
With Andrea, I've used the Stack Overflow database to show examples before. It's awesome for that.
Yeah, let's see.
It's a fun database to play with. I actually, I don't know if you saw, I had their AdventureWorks, I had worldwide importers, and then I had Stack Overflow. And Stack Overflow, I was like, oh, this finally has all the examples that I want, and I won't have to be switching databases. So.
Yeah, it's so much easier. It's like a real fun sample database and there's only like half a dozen tables in there, and they kind of mean what they say. It's not not hard to do. So yeah, that's really good fun stuff. Well, thanks, Andrea, for presenting today.